The following program is a special presentation of the Big Ten Network, produced in association with the University of Wisconsin.
I lived here before you were born. What are you talking about?
My room is an office now. Doesn't mean I don't live here.
I was like, man, I used to live in this room. He's like, man, I live here now.
My room is definitely. I had plans for that when you left.
There was a now renting sign over my door when I
No.
I mean, it was a joke. So one of the coolest things about the UW campus, I think, is that we're very politically involved, and very politically aware. In the 2008 election, I think a lot of us kind of felt a very tangible difference on our campus with Barack Obama running for office. One of the coolest things that I noticed was that there was a buzz in the air. People were constantly talking about Obama. You'd be walking to class and hear people be having political conversations, which is something that I think on a daily basis we don't normally see. How else on campus do you guys think that things changed with Barack Obama running for office?
Well, I mean, we were constantly hit over the head with vote for change and Barack Obama, and I'm not gonna lie, I got rather sick of it, especially towards the end. But I mean, regardless of what political party, I know a lot of people have said that. But it was a lot of fun. It was really neat to see everyone get really involved, and even if it was just a little bit, they still felt really motivated.
Everybody was involved. I mean, the youngest little kids to, you seen old ladies that were selling buttons. There was one lady specifically in Library Mall. She just had a collection of Obama buttons. So just seeing that, especially this being my first presidential election, I was eligible to vote for. It was a great experience. The environment on campus really nurtured that. I think.
I think that's partly because Obama had a grassroots mobilization machine. I mean, he played it to a T. He involved everyone. I mean, everyone. I think a lot of people who hadn't been previously in the process felt as though they could involve themselves in his campaign in a really sort of interesting way. And you had, if you look just within Madison, you had families sort of participating as a group. They go to the campaign office, make calls, participate, and it certainly trickled down to campus. I do agree with what Meredith said in that we were hit over the head quite a bit. I think the messaging was all over us. It was very hard to ignore. It was hard not to be involved on some level, if you want to think of it that way. I
think, though, that there's kind of two factors going into that. One was that Barack Obama was kind of, in an unprecedented way, used technology to appeal to the youth. And I think that was a huge issue on our campus, that we were getting emails all the time, you're getting text messages from the campaign. And then even past that, I think in a very cool way, it brought out not only politically involved people for Barack Obama, but also for the opposite. People that wanted McCain felt like, okay, this is our time that we need to try and speak up because we need to defend ourselves and our position. And it was really cool to see people coming out on both sides of the aisle and participating in the political system.
I think aside from actually prior to the election night was also really cool on our campus. But aside from just the Obama side of things, and on election day, stats have come out now that said even though there was so much Obama, pushing, and also for McCain, as you said, only roughly 50% of college-age students voted. And why do you think that is? And personally, I wasn't all that surprised with that statistic, mainly because saying and doing are two totally separate things. And especially when you, like I said, were bombarded by all these messages, it was very easy to kind of jump in, and even if you did support that, I'm not saying people were just doing it for the fun of it, but like I said, saying and doing are two different things.
Did you mean people saying that they're going to vote and then they don't vote?
Right, right. Saying that they're going to vote and then don't vote, or assume that everyone else is already voting, my candidate's taken care of, it's okay.
I think statistically speaking, though, an almost better statistic here to look at is because 50% is not high, but it's not very low. I mean, that's still a pretty significant statistic. But if you look at the difference between 2004 and 2008, that was a 4 to 5% increase in voters, 3.4 million youth. And that is a very, that's a pretty small percentage right there, especially for the kind of participation that we felt on campus. I thought that statistical increase was going to be a lot higher.
Now, see, I wonder what the demographics was within that vote, though, because I really feel that this election empowered a lot of individuals that may not have voted because they didn't have any confidence within the electoral process. And so I feel that, I understand what you're saying, Alex, but I definitely disagree in that. I mean, that is it's not, you know, a significant number, because I feel that increase, it was motivation. There was a lot of people who may have been motivated that we don't see just because it's just a statistical blanket, and we don't see the demographics of the individuals who voted.
And you said that's a 3 to 4 million people.
3.4 million voter increase in the youth population. It's 4 to 5%, which is, I mean,
I think that's pretty big. Like 3.3 to 4 million people. That's more like that actually came out to vote. Imagine the number of people that just got registered to vote. And maybe there was some type of logistical thing that, like, you got to take into account all the circumstances. The lines were ridiculously long. Yeah. So you got to take into account all the logistical things that could have happened. But I still think that people just seeing, you know, the campaign and how, you know, the use of technology, like you said.
This program is a production of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. If you have comments about this broadcast, please email us at programming@uc.wisc.edu.
This is Jeff Wright, proud owner of Booty Man.
All right, guys, so we just saw, you know, a very increased population of voter turnout with the Obama election and with the 08 campaign in general. So now that election is over, do you guys think that people have really just stepped away from the whole political realm? Are we just comfortable with this? And if so, how can we stay involved?
I really feel like here in the city of Madison, because one, we're in the capital, I feel that youth should stay involved, because a lot of times we feel like, and my mother has said, she's like, you know, you voted now, she's like, but you're gonna graduate and then you're gonna turn into a Republican. That's what they always say. Once you get money, you turn into a Republican. But I really feel that youth can stay involved, and they should. And I'm glad that Obama motivated them, like Jeff said previously about the grassroots campaigning, and that he involved students in a way, and youth in a way that was more tailored to us, like by blogging or creating these online groups and doing small things, by donating, by knocking on doors or making phone calls. So he has empowered individuals to understand the methods of grassroots organizing, and so that they can stay involved in those simpler types, so they don't have to worry about, you know, how do I get involved in such a huge campaign? But he taught them how to filter through that. But going back to Mike's original question, you know, are people involved? I want to say no. I think a lot of people, when they voted for Obama, you know, he has all these promises of how he's going to fix our country, and I don't think that he's, you know, reneging on any of those promises. But once they elected him, it was kind of like, well, now everything's going to be okay. Well, I don't think that that's the way at all, and I think that people really need to continue to back up those promises and help him, you know, fulfill them. Mm-hmm. I think that almost in kind of a weird way, that the Obama becoming elected and running for president almost became like a fad to the youth. People were excited to jump on the Obama train because it was cool, it was fun, he's hip, and everybody's into it. But now that that's over, I think it's more important than ever that we maintain political participation, because we need to hold him to what we were pressuring him for in the beginning. I think it's really tough for that to trickle down into local politics, though. You know, for these huge national issues to sort of transcend other political realms is tough. And we just came out of local elections where we elected aldermen and as well as the Dane County Executive. Yeah, and we had a Supreme Court race. But it's tough to engage people in those types of elections, especially when they're not in the district. That's elections, though. As far as being politically involved, I think that just seeing Obama and kind of his way to the top, how he started off with grassroots campaigning, like it's such a motivation, I think. So let's talk a little bit about political viewpoints on campus. I think that there's no hiding the fact that this campus is largely Democratic, or at least largely liberal. Are I guess Republicans or Democrats on campus, or people who are identify with other ideologies, tolerant of opposing viewpoints? I would actually argue that it seems as though there's a reluctance to engage people on the other side of the aisle. I think, and I hate using that term, but I think at least among like my Democratic counterpoint, sometimes it's my friends will write off what conservative folks are saying and the arguments and the reasoning behind the issues that they're
that they're advocating. I think that's a detriment to the debate.
But should it be our responsibility as the liberal side, the side that's a little bit more popular here in Madison, should it be our responsibility to engage that side?
I'm not saying it is our responsibility. I'm just saying, at least among the people I'm most familiar with, there doesn't seem to be a concerted effort to
Well, why don't they bring that? Why does the other side bring that? I feel like if I was really strong about something and I wanted my opinion to be heard, I would make sure it would be heard. Like, I would bring it up. And no matter what people are saying, like that happens in politics. People are gonna down your idea, but it's all about you to bring it up.
But going back to Jeff's original question, do you think people are tolerant of other people's political viewpoints? My answer is a resounding no. Not even close, at least not on this campus. Because I have friends who are very conservative and I have friends who are very liberal. And when they walk down the street, I know earlier we were talking about people who are wearing the no Obama shirts.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling that.
But people who, who are kind of on the fence or moderate, they'll see those and they're like, oh, well, I should be offended by this because this campus is overtly liberal.
But see,
that really,
right.
I know, but they're not tolerant. Though.
There's something innate about politics that makes it so personal to everyone. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, people get very, very defensive about their beliefs because they think that it says something about who they are and it reflects their personality. And in a sense, it definitely does. But like Jeff said earlier, it's detrimental because it hurts a democratic and open discussion about the actual issues.
And I don't think it's any different than non-college students.
Right.
If we think college students are not as tolerant as they could be, I don't think that necessarily changes when people get older. In fact, at least in my opinion, it gets worse on some level.
I think that Madison is pretty tolerant. I think that it's an open space, and if you want the open space, if you want your opinion to be heard in that open space, it's on you to present it. Like, it's always going to be naysayers whenever you bring.
Stop it.
Stop it, lay off.
Stop.
Get off,
Okay,
girl. I'm so fly.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about student involvement on campus and political issues, but do you really think that students, at least at our university, are really that educated about the major issues, or are they just kind of bandwagon jumpers? They just kind of follow?
I think students are aware of the headliner issues, but I don't think students have really delved into the politics of the issues and the information or the policies that are derived from within these issues.
I disagree. I think students are scarily naive of what's going on in this world right now. I think that people know that Afghanistan.
You agree.
Well, that's what she's saying.
Didn't you say that like people understand the big headliner issues?
Yeah. I know of
she's
that.
Understand
she's saying they're completely naive about that.
I'm saying I don't think people I think people know, okay, Afghanistan is an issue, the economy is an issue, but people have no idea why or how or what's going on. I'm serious. I work for a group called Project Euthanize, and we do interviews every week of students around campus and asking them about current issues and then kind of do like an in-depth piece about it. No one has any idea what's going on. We interviewed probably 10 people and asked just, what's the capital of Afghanistan? Where we have tons of troops right now.
Did you ask them what's the capital of Wisconsin? So you kind of start at home first. You talking about teaching people about the world. People not ready to learn about the world.
That is a huge question, though.
Okay, no, but it's because we're doing a piece on Afghanistan. Okay, we don't need to get into the specifics of it. But what I'm saying is 1 out of the 10 people that we asked knew what the capital was, and we have so many troops right now deployed in Afghanistan. How do we not know more about that? We should know where we're investing our resources.
I think we should know more about like what. I think I see what you're saying. Like, we know a lot of the broad issues, but we don't know like the minute details. And I think that we should, but it's so hard to kind of learn that with the media. The media tells you what it wants to tell you, and it's hard to see both sides. So I think bandwagon, I think you said something about that earlier, Meredith, bandwagon jumping, I can definitely see that happening here. So. Yeah,
I mean, so people aren't educated. How do they become educated without, because you're not all of a sudden going to instill this kind of, sense of urgency in someone. If I don't know something about the issues, I'm not going to one day wake up and be like, she's right, I really should learn more about this. How are you going to instill that?
I think it's probably much broader than just this campus. I think it comes down to how we are educated in general, right? I think civic education in elementary and middle and high school could be much better than it is. I think you have to sort of instill at a very young age a willingness and a desire to sort of learn about not only your country but the issues it faces and how you can actively engage in that sense.
You got to enfranchise people before you can do that.
Absolutely. So let's localize the debate a little bit. Let's talk about student government on this campus and its capacity to affect change within the campus community. I've been actually involved in student government for a couple of years now, and just from my own observations, I would say that it certainly has the capacity, and it has. I think student government has done pretty cool things just within the past 10 years. And you've all heard of the bus pass and college library being open 24 hours. You've probably heard that more than you wanted to. But it seems to me that because there's such a high turnover, like any organization, and it can be volatile in that sense, that it's hard to sustain change. It's hard to sustain really good work. And so it oscillates over time. And I think it's just kind of a sort of a function of the fact that people are elected and there's high turnover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being a student who participates in student government actively here on this campus, I really feel that they definitely have the capacity to, but I feel that they don't rise to the challenge to actually go out and include the people to make a more serene voice for the campus. And they definitely have the spaces to do so. And they allot the spaces for grad students and nursing students and to accommodate everyone, but I don't think that they actually go out and do the recruitment that's actually necessary to create that voice, to make that change.
So you're saying the students on council, for example, student council, aren't representing the people within their colleges as well as they could.
I mean, think about it right now. They have right now this semester on our campus, there's 30 to 32 positions available. I mean, people aren't interested in student government, and it's because, one, they don't feel that they're being served by student government, although they are. I mean, we have the Safe Walk program and a lot of things that students don't really see where their seg fees are being divided out to. So that's one, students being unaware, but in turn, it's student government is like, I have all your money, and what am I going to do to really include you in this process of dividing it out and spending it and you know, being a part of this system, because it's a powerful system, especially on our campus. I mean, 095, I'm telling you, if you knew what that, you know, what the power that has for student government here, the shared governance within the state of Wisconsin, we have one of the strongest student governments, you know, on a lot of Big Ten campuses.
I think you got to educate people about that, though. I know a lot of times, I can say this, maybe this is, you know, my naivety speaking, but I think that a lot of, like, you don't know what student government does. But I didn't know Safe Walk, you know, came from student government. I knew about college library and the bus pass, but like, we don't know what you do. Like, if I was interested in running for a position, I need to know like what it is, you know. So.
This program is a production of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. If you have comments about this broadcast, please email us at programming@uc.wisc.edu.
Just because you don't laugh doesn't mean you're not happy.
You know, now that I think back about a lot of different things that my grandmother has told me and my mother, and I think about our campus being so liberal, and I have to question myself about demonstrations and protests and sit-ins and all those kind of things that keep students kind of engaged and pushed about the issues. Do you think that they've gone out of style? Because I don't normally see that here on campus, although you might see of somebody marching down State Street, but what do you think about protests and demonstrations?
I think that the biggest thing here that we should look at is that people aren't as politically involved, seemingly on the surface, because of demonstrations, as they were if we're going to compare it to the 60s, for example. And one of the biggest discrepancies between these two eras is the draft. Because it was a draft, people were forced into kind of the issue and forced to acknowledge what was going on. People couldn't sit behind their TVs, turn it on when they wanted to, turn it off when they want to. People were involved because it was their brothers, it was their dads, it was people that they knew being called into this order. And I think that that's one of the biggest issues here when we're looking at protesting. People don't feel the need to anymore.
I think you're exactly right. And another thing I would say is that we're not being asked to pay for this war right now. Taxes aren't increased, and we're putting this off on sort of later generations, and I think that's a huge problem. If people knew the impact that this was having on their wallets, right, at the time in which it was happening, I think the reaction would be certainly different. But we're not doing that, so people have an excuse to kind of sit back, to not read the paper, to not engage.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I think it's gone on as long as it has.
To run off of what you two said, though, I think the major problem is that a major discrepancy is like back in the 60s, the problem was more in your face. There was a draft, and the civil rights movement was at full blast during this time. And this is the time when, like, I wouldn't be allowed to sit in front of a bus. So things have changed a lot, and I think that especially my generation, we sometimes feel too relaxed. We feel like, oh,
exactly. You know,
we're comfortable. We're comfortable, like, oh, I can sit in front of the bus now, so everything is good. But the thing that we have to learn is that it's not over. You know, there's still a lot of battles that need to be fought.
And I think there are still demonstrations, like Andriel said. You know, there are some people walking down State Street, and there are, you know, kind of mini marches here and there, and especially during the election, there are all these rallies. but not a lot of attention is paid to that. And I think a lot of times on this campus as well, there are many demonstrations going on at the same time. We just kind of phase them out also.
Yeah. I think also, though, that people have found different ways to channel their energies. In the 60s, demonstrations were effective, but we just went through an entire 8 years where we didn't feel like we were being listened to in the political system. And people that are active now are doing those through different modes of technologies. Okay, so it's time now for our famous final words. The first one that we're going to talk about is campaign finance reform. What do you guys think about it?
Necessary. I think on the federal level, Feingold and McCain did good work when they passed campaign finance reform, but I think obviously money still influences politics more than anything else, and that needs to change.
What do you guys think in this recent spring election last Tuesday, the Supreme Court nominees they spent an unprecedented amount of money. What do you guys think about this trend of people needing to spend more and more money to do better?
Well, you know what?
All right, go ahead.
No, I would say that that's sad, because if they spent all that money, I only knew like one of the candidates by like one commercial that I heard on the radio that Gwen Moore actually did for this candidate, and I thought to myself, I hadn't seen any flyers, I hadn't seen them post in nobody's yard, I hadn't got anything on campus, so I really felt that, where are they? Like, where are they spending the money?
I think it'll be interesting once it's kind of our generation's turn, you know, when it's our, peers possibly running for these kind of offices, because, like you said a little bit ago, technology is becoming more and more the forefront, and if technology stays somewhat the same, it's going to be cheaper to kind of get your message out to a mass audience, kind of like Obama did.
I think we need public financing, though. I mean, it shouldn't just be for the wealthy to run in large races, and that's what it's about. I mean, you have to raise a ton of money. You have to raise millions of dollars to be a candidate. And what about sort of the average person who wants to run for office? It's much more difficult.
You'd be like Ralph Nader.
And in Wisconsin, especially, I think that I don't know if this is the only state. I'm pretty sure it's the only state that does that, though. I just call it that, but I think I personally think that it's ridiculous that in order to run, you have to like actually run a campaign in order to be a justice on the Supreme Court. Yeah. I definitely don't think that's a political realm.
I agree with that. Judicial appointments.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But come on.
What about playing off of that average person thing? Let's go to Sarah Palin. How does everybody feel about her?
Well, you see where she at
that's
back
what
in the
I think of now.
Yeah, that was no.
She was a caricature. She has a website like Sarah Palin 2010,
yeah,
2012 or something. I was on it the other day, and it was kind of scary.
Here's my beef with Sarah Palin. I don't mind a lot of her, but I do mind the fact that she seemed to be very uneducated about the issues. If you watch any of the
The preceding program was produced by the University of Wisconsin in association with the Big Ten Network.